everyone, welcome back to another video, and today we're talking about something that might shock you. Because the TV show Andor, which I thought was one of the greatest shows that Disney Plus has ever put out, was almost a show that never got made in the first place.
Tony Gilroy, the creator of Andor, recently shared some of the many struggles he faced getting the show off the ground. And in today's video, we're exploring exactly why Andor was so hard to finally get published. Tony Gilroy, the creator of Andor, calls this project the most important thing he has ever worked on. Diego Luna, the man who brought Cassian to life, says working as Cassian has been a dream come true because he has been watching Star Wars since he was younger. The response from fans has been nothing but overwhelmingly positive about the show, so it seems surprising that within Lucasfilm itself, the show was fighting an uphill battle since day one. Starting with creative differences, Tony Gilroy said that both Andor and Rogue One wouldn't have happened without the help of a certain controversial head of Lucasfilm. And this story is actually one that a lot of other creatives within Lucasfilm didn't even want to tell. There have been reports that Dave Filoni wasn't too thrilled with certain creative choices that Andor has made throughout its 2 seasons. This could be for multiple reasons, but I believe he thought it was exploring concepts that Star Wars shouldn't touch on, or it was targeted to a specifically adult audience instead of the broader demographic that they usually aim for. I completely understand this take because Star Wars has always been something that anyone and everybody can watch. But you know what? This show really surpassed everyone's expectations because it is an incredible artistic masterpiece, but it's also enjoyed by people of all ages. It's enjoyed by the adult audience, but also for some younger viewers as well. Diego Luna has actually said that he's enjoyed watching Andor with his kids. Also, there's a lot of shows lately taking a more darker and mature edge to them, especially with the rise of streaming services. So it doesn't surprise me that the producers at Lucasfilm are trying out this same styling approach for Andor. It's just incredible to me that this show almost never happened. And as controversial as it sounds, Kathleen Kennedy was actually a big part of getting both this show and Rogue One off the ground. Now, no matter what you think of the creative decisions from Disney in the past few years, Tony Gilroy has actually thanked Kathleen Kennedy multiple times for the work that she put into making Andor and Rogue One come to life. In the business of producing a show for the biggest IP in history, it is very hard to get everyone on the same page about what stories need to be told. There's a lot of different ideas, and you're not always 100% sure how things will look on the screen before you film them. It can get really expensive to plan a TV show and get all the way through shooting it just to realize it doesn't look as great as you originally thought. And even though there were struggles to get the show off the ground, it's surprising that Dave Filoni might have not believed that the show belonged on Disney Plus. Now again, no matter what you think of these certain creative heads, personally I think Dave Filoni knows a lot about Star Wars lore and has created some of the best characters and story arcs that we've seen from Disney. That being said, one person can miss the mark on a couple things, but it doesn't mean that they're a bad creator. It just means that they tried something new and it didn't connect as much as they thought it would. On the other hand, he's created some of the most beloved animated shows in the franchise. But I think as far as Andor is concerned, he might have underestimated what audiences were ready for. Disney Plus has touched on darker concepts with its new original shows, especially with shows like Renegade Nell, or even shows within the Star Wars universe like certain episodes of Mandalorian Season 2. I think it's impressive that Andor was able to touch on a wide variety of topics, even while making an incredible story that is accessible to everyone. You see, Andor is so important because it takes Star Wars to a completely new level. It confirms the idea that you don't need specific aspects of storytelling to make a compelling TV show. For years, I think Disney has tried to recreate what fans are used to seeing on the big screen instead of putting a bulk of the effort creating a likable character and a clear, coherent story. Andor shows us that you don't need flashy lightsaber fights or chosen one characters to tell a Star Wars story. You can create something from a galaxy far, far away and connect it to a fantastic story, and the audience will love you for it. The story is even more powerful because it doesn't have Jedi with incredible powers. These are normal, everyday people who should have lived normal lives but couldn't under the Empire. They are people with the resolve and strength enough to stand up for what they believe in. For example, Luthen Rael isn't a Jedi, but he's someone who could not stand the sight of the injustice around him. He's just a man willing to sacrifice everything, including his own soul, for the hope of a better galaxy. Andor doesn't have to be force sensitive to do the missions he does. He's just someone who refuses to relinquish his freedom and the freedom of the people around him. He becomes so skillful at what he does that he does the impossible. He can become whoever he needs to be for a mission and does what needs to be done. He can get Mon Mothma and Kleya out of Coruscant, even though the Empire had so many people looking for them. Mon Mothma doesn't need a lightsaber to command a room. She has compassion and courage to risk everything for the galaxy she believes in, and she uses her voice to convince others that what they're witnessing
isn't right, and that makes all the difference in the world. That's why I think Andor is such an amazing story, and I can't believe it was almost canceled from the beginning. I think its theme takes us back to the original trilogy. The rebellion wasn't just about Luke Skywalker blowing up the Death Star. It was also about Han Solo coming back at the right moment to do the right thing, and he ended up saving Luke so that he could destroy the Death Star. It was also about Leia trying to do everything she could to get the Death Star plans to Obi-Wan. It was about real people refusing to do nothing when they know that they can stand up. A New Hope isn't just about Luke. It's about the whole Rebel Alliance gaining a leg up on their fight. And that advantage came from every single person in Andor that fought to get the information about the Death Star. It's really a beautiful piece of storytelling, and I think it adds so much to the original movies. People are hungry for stories that challenge them and go deeper than just flashy fighting. People want good characters, and Andor proves that Star Wars is big enough for all kinds of stories. You can have your more mythical fantasy type of story like the first few films, or you can have a more grounded political thriller like this series. But maybe we can take something away about how difficult this story was to tell. What makes this story even better is because the story actually faced struggles in the real world as it was being created. It's kind of poetic to see the characters in the show struggle to get their information out. Meanwhile, in real life, this show also struggled to tell its story. This show faced setback after setback, and it was actually supposed to run for a whole 5 seasons. Tony Gilroy has said that the original plan was to have 1 season for each year leading up to the events of Rogue One. So this would mean instead of 3 episode arcs, we would have seen a larger story and gotten more detail of each time period. Of course, this didn't end up happening because of how long each season took to produce. Season 2 was in production for almost 3 years. In Andor's first season, there were large amounts of delays due to the lockdown a couple years ago. The cast and crew faced lockdown several times and trying to film while adhering to all the safety precautions. Finally, the season finished, but it was already delayed by about a year. Then when the crew came back for another season, it was right in the middle of the Hollywood strikes. The Actors Guild had strikes, and then the Writers Union had strikes as well, and Andor Season 2 was pushed back another year as well. This means there was about 3 years in between the show airing, and if production kept at the same pace, then the cast would have been about 20 years older than they are in Rogue One, which might have taken the audience a little out of the magic. But luckily, the production team and Tony Gilroy were able to pivot their plan and create a captivating story in a shorter time span. I would say they did a fantastic job because each of the 3 episode arcs were more and more captivating. I would have been curious to know though what they had planned for a larger season. In the first 3 episodes, I would have loved to see more about Yavin being built and the other rebel cells getting introduced to each other. We didn't see much about the rebel cells being combined into a larger rebellion, or how the rebellion started getting their fleet and army built up. I would have also loved to see more of Mon Mothma's fight within the Senate to help Gorman. We saw clips of her trying to rally fellow senators, but nothing seemed to have stuck.
We know from a deleted scene in Revenge of the Sith that Mon Mothma was working together with Padme and Bail Organa to create a group of trusted senators that were unhappy with the amount of power being given to Chancellor Palpatine. This committee likely formed the backbones of the rebellion inside the Senate. This scene was removed from the Revenge of the Sith movie, but I think it shows a lot about Mon Mothma and Bail Organa's character. They were willing to step up and speak out against Chancellor Palpatine even before he created the Empire. They pretty much saw the writings on the wall of what was about to happen, and they wanted to stop it before it got too far. I'm wondering how deep of a connection Mon Mothma had to the other senators, but I'm not sure what part they played in the rebellion, if at all. So it would have been interesting to see Mon Mothma fighting with other senators within their own circles.
It would have also been captivating to see more of Cassian's missions.
Cassian's missions were hinted at in the Star Wars comics, but we don't know much other than what's already in Andor. I'm guessing Cassian went on some pretty serious missions because he's extremely talented when we see him again in Andor Season 2. Towards the later episodes in the show and in Rogue One, it always seems Cassian knows exactly what he's doing. This type of skill only really comes with experience, so I'm really curious to see what he was up to on his other missions.
I love how much Cassian has grown since the first season, and it's incredible to see him shaping into the operative that we see in Rogue One. So getting to see him really gain his skill set would have been amazing. Seeing him dress up and put on a character to go to Gorman for the first time was magical, and I would have loved to see more of those episodes.
Kalea would have been another person I would have loved to get more details on. During the episode with Krennic and Lonnie in the art room, it was kind of hinted at that Kalea might have been born on a planet where blindness was viewed as a gift. Also, seeing Kalea in action of the last arc of the show was incredible, and so was seeing her and Luthen play the part of socialites in Coruscant. I love the scenes where Luthen was acting interested in what people were up to, only to see that information was being used later in the show on his missions. These two were such a duo, and getting to see more of their network in and out of Coruscant would have been really interesting.
But all in all, I'm just grateful we got Andor Season 2. I think it was fantastic, and I would love to know what you think down in the comments. Also, if you like this video and you want to know exactly how the Empire created their own worst enemy, check check out this video I just did. I think you'll really like it. And I hope you'll consider subscribing so I can see you on the next mission. Now just remember, you have friends everywhere.